somewhere inside you right now, tucked into the lower right side of your abdomen, there is a small worm-shaped pouch about the size of your finger. For 150 years, medicine called it useless. Doctors removed it whenever they opened someone's abdomen for any reason at all. You were having a hysterectomy? They took the appendix too. Abdominal surgery for something else? Appendix gone. The main reasons for removing it routinely included the fact that historically, the vermiform appendix was defined as a vestigial organ, and the loss of the appendix was thought to have few, if any, long-term effects. Millions of appendices removed, because everyone agreed it did nothing. Darwin said it was a useless leftover. Textbooks confirmed it for generations. Medical students were taught it as settled fact. One evolutionary biologist called it something whose major importance appeared to be the financial support of the surgical profession. Then, in 2007, researchers at Duke University published a paper, and quietly, without announcement, the appendix got its job back. To understand how we got this wrong for 150 years, you have to go back to Darwin. Darwin argued that the appendix was a vestigial organ, a structure that performed a biological function in ancestral organisms but had become obsolete through evolution. He proposed that our distant ancestors survived on a herbivorous diet rich in leaves and thus needed a large cecum, the pouch at the beginning of the large intestine that housed bacteria specialized in breaking down plant fiber. As humans evolved and began eating more easily digested food, the cecum shrank. Darwin believed the appendix was simply a leftover section of that shrinking cecum, a remnant of something that used to matter but no longer did. This made sense. Evolutionary logic was coherent. The appendix was small, it seemed to do nothing, and when it became inflamed, it could kill you. Every argument pointed in one direction. Useless organ, evolutionary artifact, remove it when convenient. In 1893, German anatomist Robert Wiersheim expanded Darwin's list of useless human organs to 86, and the appendix was prominently featured. 86 organs, all presumably doing nothing, all presumably safe to remove. As medicine advanced, most of those 86 were found to have functions. The list shrank, but the appendix stayed on it. Decade after decade, the appendix remained the most famous example of evolutionary uselessness in the human body. Textbooks repeated it. Professors taught it. Surgeons removed it. The case was closed. William Parker had spent 10 years studying something called a biofilm. A biofilm is a thin layer of bacteria, a colony of microbes that live together on a surface, protected from outside threats by a structure they build around themselves. You have billions of them in your gut right now. They are not the problem. They are the system. The gut is populated with different microbes that help the digestive system break down the foods we eat. In return, the gut provides nourishment and safety to the bacteria. Parker had been mapping where these biofilms lived in the human body, how they organized, how they survived, and he noticed something about the appendix. Biofilm distribution in the large bowel suggested something unexpected. The appendix, with its substantial lymphoid tissue, its unique architecture, and its location just below the normal one-way flow of food and germs, appeared to be exceptionally well suited as a protected environment for commensal bacteria. In 2007, Parker and his colleagues published the paper. The theory was straightforward and devastating in its simplicity. The appendix acts as a safe house for beneficial bacteria. The beneficial bacteria in the appendix that aid digestion can ride out a bout of diarrhea that completely evacuates the intestines and emerge afterward to repopulate the gut. Think about what that means. When you get severe food poisoning, when your body is trying to purge everything, your gut bacteria go with everything else. The biofilm gets flushed. The colonies are destroyed. Your gut becomes a blank slate. For most of human history, this was potentially catastrophic. Gut bacteria are not optional. They digest your food. They regulate your immune system. They protect against dangerous pathogens by simply occupying the space. Without them, you are vulnerable in ways that are difficult to overstate. The appendix sits in a protected cul-de-sac, tucked away from the normal flow. When everything else is flushed, the appendix bacteria survive, and then they repopulate. The appendix is a backup drive, a seed bank, a shelter in the storm. It was never useless. We just lived in a world clean enough that we rarely needed it, and concluded from that convenience that it had no purpose. Parker's paper was not the first suggestion that something was wrong with the useless appendix consensus. For decades, researchers had noted that the appendix contained large amounts of lymphoid tissue, immune system cells. The appendix is thought to have some immune function based on its association with substantial lymphatic tissue, although the specific nature of that putative function was unknown. Why would an organ with no function be packed with immune cells? Why would evolution maintain that level of immune investment in something doing nothing? The question was always there. The consensus was so strong that it was easier to ignore the question than to challenge the answer. A 2009 follow-up study found that Darwin was wrong in another way too. The appendix has evolved at least twice, once among Australian marsupials, and another time among rats, lemmings, and other rodents. Not only does it appear in nature much more frequently than previously acknowledged, but it has been around much longer than anyone had suspected. Evolution does not maintain structures that serve no purpose. The metabolic cost of growing and sustaining any organ, even a small one, is real. If the appendix truly did nothing, natural selection would have eliminated it long ago. The fact that it kept evolving, kept appearing across species, kept being maintained, was always evidence against the vestigial argument. "Maybe it's time to correct the textbooks," said William Parker after the 2009 study. Many biology texts today still refer to the appendix as a vestigial organ. Here is the part of this story that matters for right now. Parker's theory comes with a caveat. That use is not needed in a modern industrialized society. If a person's gut flora dies, they can usually repopulate it easily with germs they pick up from other people. In the modern world, with clean water, antibiotics, probiotics, and a hygiene infrastructure that would have been unimaginable to most of human history, the appendix's backup function rarely activates. We get diarrhea, we recover, our gut bacteria repopulate through environmental exposure. The safe house sits mostly empty. But in the world that shaped human evolution, the world of contaminated water, endemic cholera, dysentery, and gastrointestinal disease, without treatment, that backup function was potentially the difference between recovery and death. Diseases causing severe diarrhea are endemic in countries without modern health and sanitation practices, which often results in the entire contents of the bowels, including the biofilms, being flushed from the body, Parker said. The appendix was not designed for our world. It was designed for the world that made us. And we dismissed it because we were comfortable enough to never need it, and then declared it useless. How many were removed? The current rate of appendectomies is around 97 per 100,000 people per year. Across the decades during which incidental appendectomies, removing a healthy appendix during other abdominal surgery, were standard practice, the numbers are in the millions. As late as the mid-20th century, many reputable authorities conceded the appendix no beneficial function. In 1916, a surgeon claimed that removal of the appendix had cured several cases of nerve pain about the head and face, even though the evidence for appendicitis in those patients was inconclusive. The appendix was blamed for things it had nothing to do with, removed as a precaution. taken out because it was there and it was convenient, and everyone agreed it did nothing. We can only wonder how many normal appendices have been removed by surgeons since Darwin first claimed them to be a useless vestige. The answer is a very large number. Removed from people who are now living without a backup system they did not know they had. In a world that is increasingly using antibiotics, which kill gut bacteria, and increasingly concerned about gut microbiome health, the organ we removed by the millions, because we decided it did nothing, turns out to be the one storing the reserve supply. The appendix is not useless. It never was. We looked at it during a period of unprecedented sanitation and modern medicine, and concluded from our comfort that it had no purpose. We had never needed it, so we assumed it had nothing to offer. And then we removed it from millions of people, and added it back to the textbooks, only when a researcher asked a question the consensus had stopped asking. While there is no smoking gun, the abundance of circumstantial evidence makes a strong case for the role of the appendix as a place where the good bacteria can live safe and undisturbed until they are needed, said William Parker. The appendix is still being studied. The full picture is not complete. There are researchers who remain skeptical of the safe house theory. The debate continues. But here is the lesson that does not depend on which theory wins. We declared something useless because we couldn't see what it did, not because it did nothing. Because our tools and our assumptions and our circumstances prevented us from seeing the function. And we acted on that declaration, removed it from millions of people, with complete confidence. The question the appendix leaves behind is not about anatomy. It is about the gap between we don't know what this does and this does nothing. Those two statements sound similar. They are not the same thing. And the history of medicine is full of the consequences of treating them as if they were.